Welcome to the 10-minute rules review for Level 10 Vault. We'll start with the apparatus specifications. Tape or chalk are not permitted on the table. Chalk is not permitted on the runway. However, athletic tape or Velcro strips are okay. Chalk markings are allowed on the landing mat for a visual cue. However, these markings must be removed after the athlete competes. Tape is not permitted on the hand placement mat. However, chalk may be used. If any of these are violated, then the chief judge issues a warning first and then would take 2/10. It's not considered equipment failure if the tape measure moves from the original position or the hand placement mat slips. So this is not a reason for the gymnast to repeat the vault without penalty. These are considered the coach's responsibility. Mats can sometimes be confusing for judges, so we'll do a quick review. The hand placement mat is okay for the front handspring onto the board and the round-off entry vaults. It cannot be used, however, on the runway as a visual aid for other front entry vaults. The safety zone mat is critical. It is required for front handspring onto the board and for round-off entry vaults. If the safety zone mat is not used, then the vault is void. For those two types of vaults, the safety zone mat must fit snugly around the board or the vault is void. The safety zone mat may be used for other types of vaults. It doesn't have to be snug for those vaults. It can actually be a little bit pulled away. The competition landing mats may consist of a variety of combinations with a maximum of 9 inches. One 4-inch mat is required, and a second 4-inch mat may be placed on top of that. If there's only one 4-inch mat used as a competition landing mat, then a 1 1/4 base mat must be used, or an 8-inch competition landing mat is allowed. The combination of those mats may total up to 9 inches. In addition, another 9 inches of supplemental matting is allowed on top of the competition landing mats, and that can include any combination of a sting, a 4-inch throw mat, or an 8-inch skill cushion. So in essence, you just need to remember that up to 9 inches of competition landing mats are allowed, as well as up to 9 inches of supplemental matting. If unauthorized or additional matting is used, the chief judge would deduct 3/10. Clubs may not bring their own mats to a meet, including the hand placement mats. An alternate skill cushion, a pit pillow, is allowed at all sanctioned meets for levels 8, 9, and 10 for warm-ups only. This is to allow the gymnast to perform a timer for a salto vault. Some general information. Gymnasts are allowed 3 attempts to successfully complete 1 or 2 vaults. A balk is considered a fall during the run, stopping mid-run, running off the runway, or contacting the board or table without coming to rest or support on top of the table. 1 balk is allowed in the 3 attempts. However, a second or third balk would result in a score of 0 for that attempt. Some examples of void vaults. If the gymnast has flight, has her hands in support on the table, but she doesn't drive her heels up overhead, and she either finishes in a squat stand on the table or comes back down and lands on the board, that is considered a void. Similarly, if the gymnast has flight and goes to a near inverted handstand, but she's not able to complete the vault and steps down on the table, or lands back on the board, that is considered a void vault. The other is, of course, a belly slide on top of the table. Vault numbers are to be visually displayed at any sanctioned competition using a 4-judge panel. At all other competitions, the vault name or number may be audibly communicated to the judges. There's no deduction, however, if the gymnast performs a different vault than the one that was announced. The body position is determined by the position shown for the majority of the vault, either a tuck, pike, or stretch. If a gymnast vaults without signal, the vault is not scored even if both judges saw the vault. The gymnast may perform 2 more vaults, and then the chief judge takes 5/10 from the average of the next vault performed. The penalty may or may not affect her final score. There's some coaching deductions that we need to be aware of. There's obviously a 5/10 for spotting the landing. It is void if the coach spots the gymnast during the vault, except for level 8, which has a 1.0 deduction from each judge. There is a 5/10 deduction if the coach stands between the board and the table. That's actually inside that space, not to the side, except for round-off vaults. There's no deduction if the coach inadvertently contacts the safety zone mat or the table when standing between the board and the table. And if a coach catches a falling gymnast, do not deduct for the spot. Only deduct for the fall. Just think of this as a safety precaution. You don't want the coach to not try to catch the falling gymnast because of the potential of getting an additional deduction. Some other rules to remind yourself of. A one-arm vault receives a 1.0 deduction from the average score by the chief judge. A vault performed with no hands is a void vault. The gymnast must land on her feet first, or there will be a void vault. A score is given, however, if the gymnast lands on her hands and the bottom of her feet simultaneously. Regardless of what happens, score the vault because a video review is allowed in certain cases, so you would need to have a score in case the video review results in overturning the initial decision. Level 10 gymnasts have the opportunity to earn a 1/10 bonus. You can look at the vault table, and those that are not asterisk and have a start value of 10.0 are eligible for that 1/10 bonus if they do not have a fall or a spot. Each judge must visibly show that the bonus was given, and typically we do this by putting up the additional 1/10 marker that's attached to our start value charts. Some clarifications. Group 1 vaults with turns in the pre-flight may be performed with a 1/4 to a 1/2 LA turn with no deduction. Group 1 vaults that have turns in both flights, the turn may be performed in either direction. Group 3 vaults may have slight arm bends on the lead arm with no deduction. These are typically the Sukahara vaults. Group 3 vaults may have either a 1/4 to a 1/2 LA turn in the pre-flight with no deduction. There's also no deduction for an incomplete turn in the 1/4 to 1/2 ons, 3/4 or 1/2 off front salto vaults. And the Group 5 vaults with full turn on and back salto off may be performed with either a 3/4 to full turn on with no deduction. Timing of falls begin when the gymnast is on her feet. If an injury occurs, the fall time begins after the medical assessment is completed. If the 45-second time is exceeded, a second vault is not allowed, and the chief judge is responsible for monitoring that time. Some newer change deductions. In the first phase of the vault, there's not a change in the deduction, but the words have been changed to excessive arch because a tight arch is allowed as an acceptable technique. Hip angle on the first flight is now up to 3/10. LA turn begun too early in the support phase is up to 3/10. Steps with the hands are 1/10 each, and hops with both hands simultaneously is 3/10. Some new or changed deductions in the second flight. The LA turn begun too late has been deleted. Brushing or hitting your body at the far end of the table is up to 2. Insufficient stretch now has a deduction for excessive arch that is up to 3. Under rotation of salto vaults has a deduction of up to 1/10. You'll be able to clearly identify this as when the gymnast takes a step toward the table. Insufficient open in the second flight phase is up to 3. You would take this on Tucker Pike vaults, and in the stretched vaults, the up to 3 deduction would be taken for piking down. And body posture on the landing is up to 2. Be sure and review the chart that we show you here in this slide to remember that both insufficient late opening and body position on landing can be taken. One is up to 3, one is up to 2. Landing with the feet apart only applies to stuck landings. And so you would take a 1/2 of the feet are hip width apart or closer, but the gymnast does not join her heels. You would take 1/10 if the gymnast's feet are further than hip width apart and doesn't join her heels. And staggered foot position also only applies to the stuck landings. So if the gymnast staggers her feet and takes a step, you would only take deduction for the step. Just a reminder, on the squat on landing, the gymnast is allowed to have and should have a squat on landing for safety purposes, and it's just how deep that squat goes. Review the table here because basically we're looking to see the gymnast having some compression as well as her chest slightly forward before she straightens to salute. The deep squat is only if the gymnast is nearly touching the floor. We hope you enjoy your experience judging vault. Good luck.